Hi, Michael from Source Wealth here. Today I'm going to show you our goals planning session and software that we use for that initial appointment. Now, this software is the best that I've come across in terms of being able to map out all of your different life goals and objectives. As you'll see, it's essentially a timeline where we can plot all the different important things for you and what we want to achieve. Now, I have pre-filled a few examples to start. So, for instance, in 10 years' time on my time frame, I've got the goal of purchasing a dream home. Now, for each goal and objective, we can then also put in information relative to that goal. Now, with any goal, we want them to be SMART goals. Now, if you've heard that before, what that means is that the goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and a time bound. So with each of these goals, we can go ahead and put in the specifics. So for instance, I'm looking to purchase a house for $2 million in today's value in 10 years' time. So obviously that'll be worth a lot more. So therefore, in the modeling and projections we do, we then increase that with inflation to see what it might be worth at that time. The next thing we need to do is work out if it's measurable. So for instance, we can then discuss, based on what that purchase will be, what do we need to get the current home loan down to? So in this case, I've anticipated we want it to be a loan to value ratio of 60% by that time. So therefore we need to work out next, is that achievable? So we need to do modeling and projections to assess the feasibility of this goal at that point. The next section to discuss is whether it's relevant. So is it an important goal? Well, in this case, it is, because in my case and a lot of cases, you might need a bigger house for a growing family later down the track. And finally, with this goal, do we have a time? Yes, we do. So it's in 10 years' time. So that's an example of a good SMART goal. Now, as you can see, we can go along and plot this for all these different categories. So intangible goals, material possessions and life experiences, family, health, work, retirement, financial, and even giving. So essentially it's designed to include all the different categories of what's important to you, so we can really get to know exactly what this plan needs to include and prioritize, and also show you with the modeling in terms of what's feasible. So to go through some of these different categories, starting with the intangibles, we can see here a lot of these are things like financial security, financial freedom, time, adventure. So perhaps things that you wouldn't typically associate with seeing a financial advisor, but often do have a financial element. And I'll give you a quick example. So with time, I've plotted here, and I've added some comments here saying, currently working long hours. So in 2 years' time, I'd like to be able to reduce my working hours down. Now, this isn't necessarily true, but just a good example that I quite often see, working with people with really fast-paced jobs. They might be working 60 hours a week. Could they work in something where their salary reduces, for instance, by 10%, but they have a better work-life balance? And therefore, you would like to know the financial effect of this on your situation. That's where we can get into the strategy and the modeling around that for you to see whether this goal is feasible, and also relative to all the other goals, because sometimes you can achieve 80% of the goals but not 100% of the goals, and that's where the prioritizing comes into play. In possessions and life experiences, common things, for instance, travel. Often people have, I want to spend $10,000, $20,000 a year on travel and holidays each year. You can enter in when vehicles, for instance, often people buy a new car every 10 years, so we can plot that along the timeline. Different bucket list items, maybe taking a sabbatical in your career. Whatever it is that's important to you, we can plot each of these goals along the timeline. Different family goals, so we've got ones relating to kids, marriage, even extended family goals. So for instance, one that quite often comes up is how to look after, for instance, aging parents, or perhaps kids with special needs, or another big one as well, private schooling as well, if that's a goal. If that's a goal, let's say in 13 years' time or 15 years' time, whatever it might be, then what we want to do as well is make sure we've got a plan for that today, because if all of a sudden you've got private school costs that are often $30,000 or $40,000 a year per child, it's not something you want to be adding to your regular cash flow at that point, but rather, starting investment portfolios for it now, perhaps, so that it's not such a big shock at that time frame. We talk about different health elements, whether there's health concerns for you or wider family members, and how to best prepare for that. Different types of work events. So as an example, you might want to start a business, sell a business, you might want to change careers, you might want to get promotions. We can plot all of that on here as well, and the financial effect of those. We can talk about retirement as well. So for instance, a full retirement, let's say you might want to go age 60 as a little bit earlier than normal. And then we can also obviously put in the details there. So full retirement, maintaining the same standard of living. So then that way I can look at what you're spending now and then work out how much we need to be able to spend in retirement until usually life expectancy plus, say, 10 years, and then work backwards to work out how much you'll need in things like your superannuation and other assets to be able to maintain that living expenditure. And we can do that, as you can see here. In my case, it's 28 years away. So we can project really far out to make sure you've got that long-term clarity and confidence as well. In the financial area, there's obviously a lot of goals that always come out of this. So it could be improve your cash flow, minimize tax, goals and planning, pay off mortgage. It could be around, whether you expect to receive any large windfalls or inheritance, at some point. Reviewing or creating a super fund, establishing or reviewing insurances, an investment property in the future, perhaps, all these different types of aspects. And then lastly, we've got this giving section where we can talk about whether to gift other people or to charity, or even to volunteer time, or even maybe it's just as simple as developing a will or an estate planning if you haven't gotten around to that already. So typically after we do about 45 minutes of this with you, then we have this timeline really full with different goals and objectives. That then allows me to work on the strategy of how to meet each of these goals, or whether we can. We may need to prioritize different ones. And then what we do is we feed that into the modeling, which I'll show you in a separate video, to actually project out and give you that confidence of exactly when we can achieve these goals, if we can achieve all of them, or if you need to make trade-off decisions.